Hey everyone, this is Athletes and Antiquities, and today I'm going to talk about, is it worth it to buy or invest in lower grade PSA cards? This was a question that was asked by a viewer named Casper. I thought it was a great topic, so I'm making a video about it. So what I mean by that is it worth it to buy these cards in a lower grade from a monetary perspective, like from what's going to actually make money? Because if you're just looking at it from a collectible standpoint, the grade really doesn't matter. If you love this 1990 Fleer Jordan that you see here, I'm going to get it up front. If you love this 1990 Fleer Jordan, you don't have to get it in a 10 if you're just going to put it on your desk or something to look at. There's no reason for that. You can buy a 9, buy an 8, have the exact same presentation value and enjoy it, but just know that it's not going to be worth as much. So if you planned on reselling it, that's when this discussion comes into play. So the value of a grade, the value of a graded card depends on a couple things: popularity, demand, difficulty to grade, and quantity available. So when you look at the most expensive cards in any hobby, whether it's sports, Pokemon, any of that, usually they have all of these things. They're very popular, they have a very low population, they're very difficult to grade, and this combination of things holds immense value. You can't find them, it's hard to grade them, and everybody wants them. That's things like the Babe Ruth, the T206 Honus Wagner, the Wayne Gretzky, even like first edition Charizard, Illustrator, stuff like that. All of these have all of those intangibles: the popularity, the low grade, the difficulty to grade, the low populations, all those things in one. So with things like that, the grade is almost irrelevant. And obviously that's not true in the sense like a PSA 10 is going to be worth more than a PSA 9, but in a lot of those, they sell so infrequently, people don't really care about what is an 8, what is a 9, they just want the item. Like with a Pikachu Illustrator or a Honus Wagner, no one's gonna be like, oh, I don't want that because it has a scuff in it. Like, no, you want that for the item itself, not for the grade. So those really high-end stuff kind of bypass this rule because there's so few of them that you're never going to find another one if you pass it up. So people will buy a PSA 4 for hundreds of thousands of dollars because there's no other, like, where are you going to find the next one? They're so infrequent. But things like the more modern you get, the harder it is to justify those lower grades. So like, sure, if you're talking about Babe Ruth, get whatever grade you can because that it's so hard to obtain. Like I said, the grade doesn't matter. But with a card that was printed in 2019, there's no real reason that anybody would want a grade below a 9 or maybe an 8 if it's a really scarce item, but most modern products are not like that. So first thing I'm going to talk about is modern sports. So modern sports is pretty much the only market is 10s and 9s. So just to throw some numbers at you, in 2019, for all NBA cards, all NBA sets, whether it's Panini, Topps, any of them, any NBA card produced in 2019, there are 450,000 graded. 450,000. And 54% of those cards got a 10. That goes to show how easy those cards are to grade. So that's why there's no demand for the 8s and stuff like that. Because sure, 9s might hold value because there might be some factory error that you can't have any effect over, but no one's going to value those 8s because those cards are so abundant that you can just easily find a 9. You can find 10 examples of a 9, so the 8 kind of falls into obscurity. So they're very popular, but that ease to grade makes the lower grades almost worthless. And it's the same thing with modern Pokemon. So in the back here, I have a Champion's Path ETB. Champion's Path is one of the big sets right now. Not a lot of people can find these sealed product. And similar to what I said about 2019 NBA, Hidden Fates follows a similar suit. So like I said with the NBA, 54% of those 450,000 graded cards were a 10. With Pokemon, 65% of the 3,000 Champion's Path cards got a 10. So it's a much smaller number, 450,000 versus 3,000, but 65% of those got a 10. And 95% of them were 9 or higher. That's the crucial part. That's why I say 9s have value, even when the card is easy to grade, but the 8s and stuff do not. So 65% got a 10, but let's say, oh, the 10 is X amount of money, I don't want to spend that, I still want the card slabbed, I'll go a little bit less. 95% of that pool is 9 or better, so there's no reason for anybody to desire those 8s, those 7s, stuff like that. So when people get those grades, they basically just crack them and sell them as a near mint copy or something, because there's no reason to have that in terms of a value perspective. So those lower grades, those lower grades only become valuable when the grade above it is out of reach. So like I said, with some chase card in Champion's Path with that shiny Charizard, if that shoots up in value, people might look towards those 9s because the 10s are so out of reach, but there's so many 9s that it's going to take a while, a very long time, for those 8s to start to increase. But now let's look at vintage Pokemon and sports. So vintage Pokemon, vintage sports, it's a whole different ballgame. This is where the lower grades really shine. So I already talked about things like Babe Ruth and stuff, but we can go a little bit lower than that. It doesn't have to be the holy grails to still have value. So PSA 8s and lower have value because those mint cards are so scarce. It's very hard to go on eBay and find some Shining Charizard from the Neo series in near mint. Like those, that's just not available anymore because most of that stock has been graded. So what's available is what's available. So that's why people have started going down to the 8s, the 7s, the 6s, because those 9s and 10s are becoming so unreachable to many people. So let's look at the Neo Destiny Shining Charizard that I was talking about. This card is, I don't have an example right now. I actually have one that's being graded right now, but that's irrelevant. So it was produced in 2002. There are only 1,500 Neo Destiny Shining Charizards that are graded. Only 17% are a 10. And compare that to modern sports and modern Pokemon, where it was 54% and 65%. Only 17% of those cards are a 10, and only 50% are 9 or 10, as opposed to 95%, like with the Hidden Fates the Hidden Fates set, which was 95% 9 or better. Neo Destiny Charizard is 50% 9 or 10. So half of the people that want this Shining Charizard cannot obtain the 9 or the 10. That's just how it works. Only 50% of them have that. And if you think that is bad, vintage sports is worse. This is a 1979 Topps Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This card is, on its own raw, is not very expensive, maybe like $20 for a good copy. But so there are 771 of these graded. Compare that to the 1,500 Neo Destiny Shining Charizards, already much less. It was released in 1979, and half the number of the Shining Charizard are graded. Guess how many? Guess what the percentage of 10s are for this card? 0.001%. There is 1 10 of this card out of the 771 graded. So this is a perfect example of why lower PSA grades are valuable. There is a fraction of 1%. There's one person in the world that can have the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar PSA 10. It's that hard to grade. It's that scarce. It's that unobtainable. So when people are looking to complete the 1979 Topps set, or even just pursuing this card for whatever reason, they're not going to even think about the PSA 10. It's so unobtainable. The one guy that has it, it's probably like one of his holy grails. He's not going to sell that for a cheap price. So people go to the 9s. The 9s become the 10s. That's the highest grade that's accessible. Okay, so how many 9s are there? There's an 11% chance of a 9. There's 77. There's one PSA 10, 77 PSA 9s. That means 700 of the 771 cards are below PSA 9. That's where the value of these PSA 8s, PSA 7s, PSA 6s come into play. Only 11% of the buyer pool for this card can afford the 9 and the 10. So I like with modern sports, when I said, don't worry about the 8s, the 7s, they're not going to hold much value. With vintage, it's a whole different ballgame. The 10, don't even think about it. There's only one of them. And the 9, 11%. That leaves 88% 98% of the people that want this card have to resort to an 8, a 7, a 6, whatever it may be. So basically what I'm trying to say with all this is the older you get, the less likely you are to find a mint ungraded copy. So with these old cards, what you see in the population reports is pretty much what you're going to get. You're not going to wait for the boom of 1979 Topps Kareem Abdul-Jabbars to hit PSA. That's just not going to happen. What's there is what's there for the most part. There might be a couple here and there, but if you're waiting for that 10, it's not going to happen. If you're waiting for that 9, you're going to be shelling out a lot of money. So yes, with like things like vintage, it's absolutely okay to settle for the 8s, the 7s, whatever it may be. And again, this is only talking about a monetary perspective. If you're just a collector, if you just want the 79 Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, don't worry about the grade. Just get the card that you can afford. Same with this Shadows Blastoise I have here. This is a really beat up card. Might get like a 3 at PSA, but that's okay because I'm not planning on selling it. I just wanted the card, so I got a really cheap one. But if from a monetary perspective, you really have to look at the percentages and the availability of that card raw. So if you're looking at a 2019 card and you see, oh, there's only 5 at PSA, or there's only 5 PSA graded, that doesn't mean that that's not going to change. That card was printed 1 year ago as I'm making this video. So a ton more are going to hit that market. So don't pay the pop 5 type of premium like you would with something from the early 2000s or the 90s or something, where if there's only 5 in that population report, that might not change very much. So with modern, you have to be very careful with low PSA grades. There are cards that a low PSA grade is still valuable. If you have a sports card with a signature that has a low print run, like even like a 1, like a 1 of 1, obviously it's the only one. So if you have a PSA 6 of a 1 of 1, no one's gonna ever find a PSA 7 because there's only one of them. So those will still have value. But with modern, you really have to be careful with pretty much everything outside of that. Base cards, anything like Pokemon where it's just printed to the moon. There's the PSA 8s, PSA 7s, PSA 6s. I don't think those cards will ever really go up in value. People take such good care of cards now. They'll pull a holo, pull some rare sports card, immediately sleeve it up. That wasn't happening in 1979 when people were pulling Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's why there's only 1 gem mint copy in the world. So I just wanted to lay out those numbers here for this video. I thought you might find it interesting, comparing some percentages from different eras. Let me know what you think. Did I miss any marks here? Do you disagree with anything about modern grades or stuff? If you're just curious, I only deal with PSA 9s and lower because I'm not trying to have a super flashy collection like here with this like 90 Fleer Jordan. It's not a very valuable card in a PSA 9. It's about 30 bucks. And a PSA 10 is about 300. But I'm not trying to make a ton of money off this. I just thought it was a cool card. So I only buy PSA 9s for my personal collection. If I get a 10 from PSA, I'll usually sell it and then buy the 9, then pocket that difference just because I like the card, not the grade. And the 10s sell for so much more than the 9s that I can't justify those purchases unless I'm buying a modern card. If I'm buying something from 2018, I'll usually get a 10 just because it's so easy. But with stuff like early 2000s, 90s, 80s, 70s, I don't worry about the grades really. As long as the front looks presentable, there's no obvious marks or scuffs on it, I don't really care. So that's my personal preference, but I'll let me know what you guys think. Yeah, thanks. See ya.